Have you ever thought to yourself when playing Skyrim, man, I love this game so much, but I really wish there could be more weapons that I want in this game. But I can't find any mods on Nexus, and I'm willing to make it, but man, I don't know how. Well, this is a video for you. Pending. In this video, I am going to teach you the things I can find. Fuck you, camera. The things I could not find when trying to figure out how to make my own weapon in Skyrim. I found a bunch of tutorials going on about a bunch of stuff, but nothing about what the most of what I've written down has to offer. Disclaimer. This is a general sort of roadmap thing. This is pretty much everything I had to do in order to get my weapon mod to actually work. So a lot of this stuff is done to make sure you don't run into some dumb issue. And it pretty much assumes you know how to navigate most of the applications on a basic level. While I don't really go over this issue, it should be resolved if you do a little homework elsewhere with other tutorials. Though with Blender, it's assumed you know how to navigate it on a more advanced level. Not much more advanced, but still more than a basic level. I barely touched the idea of making your own textures as I used an AI to make my texture. Well, upscale it more accurately, but you can figure out ESRGAN for yourselves. Hint, there's a 3-minute and 30-second video by blood_wraith on YouTube, which has everything anyone could need despite being such a short video. This tutorial also assumes that you're using Steam for Skyrim Special Edition. With that out of the way, let me read off my shitty script. Step 1. Get applications. The applications I have written down is Blender, GIMP, Bethesda Archive Extractor, NifSkope, Skyrim's Creation Kit, and Pinefly, in brackets, Blender add-on. So I'm going to summarize these things, because why not? Blender, 3D modeling program. GIMP, open source Photoshop, basically. Yes. Maybe. Yes. Maybe. Jesus. Bethesda Archive Extractor. You use this to get data out of Skyrim that you can use and you will be using to go along with this tutorial. NifSkope. 3D modeling program 2, Electric Boogaloo. It's important, but I don't really know why I can't just use Blender to Skyrim. I just know that I need NifSkope. Skyrim Creation Kit. You can insert some files, and you can screw around with some variables, like how much damage a weapon does or whatnot. Maybe I should just restart. I'm sure there's worse tutorials out there. And Pinefly. P-Y-N-I-F-L-Y. That's a Blender add-on. And what it does is it allows you to convert your model into something that Skyrim can actually read. Although I think it's more accurately NifSkope can read, and then NifSkope exports the thing that Skyrim can read. It's essentially a converter of sorts. View it that way. Okay, moving on with this shitty tutorial. I don't know, maybe I'll be able to make the recording actually sound nice. How has it already been 8.5 minutes? So now that we've gotten the applications, step 2. Make/get reference images for modeling, for size and scale if you're making something already made. So in my case, I found a bunch of JPEGs and whatnot of the weapon I wanted to make. Found a bunch of images of the weapon I wanted to make. And I was sort of trying to side by side compare it of like, okay, so the image is this tall, so we should make the weapon this tall. Try to line it up like that. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but I did it this way, so that's how I'm going to do it. So now that you have your how high you want it, how wide you want it, how deep you want it, now we can move on to step 3, which is model the weapon. Again, I assume you know how to use a modeling program generally. If not, it's someone else's tutorial time. Because I'm not here to teach you how to work Blender. I'm just here to teach you how to take a Blender model and put it in Skyrim as a weapon. There might be some translatable things between making a weapon and making armor or making any sort of other model or texture or whatever in Skyrim. But this is weapon right now. So yeah. Now that you've modeled your weapon, we're on to step 4. Make/get texture images and put them in picture editing application. In a picture editing application. I am using GIMP for this tutorial. Is it really just gonna be my face? No, surely Man, I'm tired. I am the best human being. I'm pretty sure people can make better tutorials in their sleep. Whatever, maybe I'll figure out something. God, stop being mean to me. Now that you've gotten/made your texture images, so you can, instead of it just being a gray cylinder like this, it'll have this texture on this cylinder. But now that we have that, now in GIMP you should export the image as a .dds file. That is D as in Delta, D as in Delta, S as in suck, because that's the first word that comes to mind, as a .dds file for your textures in Blender. I used GIMP to export in .dds and make sure that they have an image resolution that is of a power of 2. Example, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, 4096, 5000, and 192? Yes. Did I say 8,000 or 9,000? It has to be a multiple, it has to be a power of 2. That's what the resolution has to be. So you could have a 4x4. 2x4 or 1024 by 2048, or it could be even 512 by 512, or it could be 8 by 4096. That's an acceptable resolution in today's day and age. Also, for making a normal map in GIMP, go to Filters, Generic, then Normal Map, and you pretty much get one automatically made for you. You'll be needing a normal map in the future, so be sure to do that as a copy, not the final product. Finally, when exporting, hit Generate MIP Maps and Use. I believe it was DXT1 compression as the universally useful one. Safe to look it up rather than take my word for it, because apparently fuck remembering anything. But it was one of the DXTs for sure. The next step is to go back into Blender and UV unwrap your model to apply textures easier. Next step, apply the textures by going into the Material tab and changing the base color to Image Texture. Fun tip, weighted normal modifier is actually amazing. Now, I don't know what a weighted normal modifier is, but I vaguely remember being very pleased with what I saw. But maybe I'm just sending you to make your thing look like shit. In which case, you have only yourself to blame for listening to some fucking asshole on the internet. The next step is to make normal maps, which I talked about earlier for some reason. Sort of like making something look 3D using 2D textures. Essentially, oh, here's a good example. If it will focus, will you focus? No. Okay, well, essentially, there's little dimples or something on here, and, it's not something that, like, majorly juts out, so you could have, like, a flat surface, a 2D image of it, and then a normal map would essentially be something that tries to make a 2D surface or a flat surface look like it's got grooves and stuff and make it look 3D. It's a cheap way of making flat things look not flat. But that's what a normal map is. And also make some environment maps. Black equals not reflective, white equals refractive. Jesus. And gray, of course, is in between. What an environment map is essentially the shininess. So, yeah, like, this is white. This would be white on, like, if this bottle was a 2D, or not even necessarily 2D, but if this yeah, actually, wait a minute. If this bottle had its textures, whatnot, it could have the environment map, and it would, this white fucking rectangle that's chipped at the top here. Stop fucking adjusting. Think you're better than me? The white part would essentially be what is reflective and what is not. Which I'm pretty sure this entire thing would be white. Except for this little thingamajiggy. This would probably be like gray, because you can actually see a bit of shine. Well, I'm sure my description is not making you more lost. Yeah, no, my .txt file is just gonna get pasted somewhere. The next step is to install a Blender add-on called PyNifly. PyNifly? PyNifly. To allow you to export .nif files from Blender. Now that PyNifly has been installed on Blender, we now use the Bethesda archive extractor to get into the Skyrim archive for sweet, sweet vanilla NifS cream. Sweet, sweet vanilla NifS. Essentially, if I'm remembering correctly, NifS is just models, textured models with Colision attached. And so I'm going to just summarize these next few steps. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking, let's say you wanted to make a greatsword. You're going to be taking a greatsword, it could be any greatsword. Just yank that greatsword, and then you're going to take your textured model, which is this hand, and we're going to be stealing the collision from this sword, which is Skyrim's sword, and just slapping it right on this custom-made trash. And then you don't have to fucking cry because the collision thing doesn't want to work for some reason. Anyways, the next step after you use the Bethesda archive extractor to get into the Skyrim archive for NifS is to import a NIF file with the new add-on that's relevant to the weapon you're making. Example, making a greatsword? Import a Daedric Greatsword NIF. You import this into your Blender file with your normal sword. Then you scale the weapon to size, because maybe Skyrim's greatswords are this big, and when you modeled your greatsword, it's this big. And so, when you put this in-game, instead of you wielding it like this, you're going to be wielding it like this. Can you even see that? There we are. You can see it better. Behold, my great sword! So yeah, scale your weapon to size so it doesn't look like a twig. Or the opposite case, where the great sword is supposed to be this size, and then you just have one that's clearly too big. Unless that's what you're going for, in which case, whatever. You do you. After you scale the weapon to size, delete the model of the imported NIF and make sure that the model is in the collision mesh. If done right, when exported, you should essentially steal the collision of the imported NIF weapon for your own weapon. Again, what I was talking about. I don't know why I'm coughing. Now, before you export, as I know some of you have already exported, be sure to recalculate the outside of your mesh, because that can lead to inverted textures, which if you don't understand what I mean, you will when it happens. It's like my skin being inside out, except a bit more pretty. Now that you've recalculated your textures and avoided that monstrosity, go to Program Files, go to Steam, Steam Apps, Common, and find Skyrim Special Edition folder. Then go to its data folder, go into Meshes, and make a new folder called Weapons. If you don't have one already, then make a folder which is the name of your mod, Water Bottle Sword. And then you can put that on Nexus Mods, and you'll get a million downloads. And maybe make another folder in that one. This file directory is where your NIF files for your mod will go. Go back up to data and do the same thing as the last step, but in textures instead. So you go into the meshes folder, you make a folder called weapons, and you make another folder in weapons, which is the name of your mod. Then you do the same thing in textures. Because what we're going to be doing is that meshes will be the model and textures will be the textures. In these folders you have just made is where your files that you've essentially been working on so far will go. In the meshes folder, this is where your NIF files will go. And in the textures folder, this is where your DDS files / texture files will go. Go figure. Back in Blender, export a NIF file of your textured model by selecting all of your model in object mode. Do it in object mode. For some reason it doesn't want to work otherwise. I'm going to be shocked if this tutorial is like, oh my god, this tutorial is so succinct. I'm like, how? I understood every single step of the process. Fuck. Apparently I'm dying. Now, the next step. Open your new custom NIF and open the vanilla NIF in NifSkope. And pretty much copy everything you see in the block details of all of the blocks in the block list. From the vanilla NIF to your custom NIF. So essentially, okay, your perspective would be based off the default things. There's a whole bunch of kerfuffle down here, and then there's a whole bunch of selection kerfuffle up here. So what you'll be doing is you'll be selecting every single little thing, and then checking down here in the vanilla, and then you'll be doing the same thing on your custom, and you'll just be copying what you see down here for every single selection up here onto your custom one. And you'll probably get satisfactory lighting and shading and whatnot. But I have written down a bunch of other stuff, so let's see what I have written down. And pretty much copy everything you see in the block details of all of the blocks in the block list, from the vanilla NIF to your custom NIF. Some things will be different, like the values under block list being the two NIFs or num verticals under the ni-tri-shape data of ni-tri-shape blocks. Ni-tri-shape equals model plus textures. Also, some of these settings are up to preference, like the bottom 6 options in the block details of BS lighting shader property. By the way, for some reason, this thing doesn't want to use spaces, so a lot of these don't have spaces. So yeah, keep that in mind. In the textures dropdown of the block details of BS shader texture set, under the BS lighting shader property block in the ni-tri shape block, apply the n underscore map and the environment map to, or the n underscore map is the normal map, and the environment map to the NIFs by typing their file directory in the 2nd and 6th slot respectively. A bit tedious, but it works. The file directory would be like, for example, Steam apps, common, Skyrim special edition, data, weapons, water bottle sword.dds, and then you have your textures, or whatever. That's just an example. You could rename it as well. But yeah, apply the normal map and the environment map to the NIFs by typing their file directory in the 2nd and 6th slot respectively. So the 2nd slot would be normal map and the 6th slot would be environment map. Or the 2nd slot would be false depth map image texture. And the environment map, which is the 6th slot, would be shininess. Ow, I bit my gum. Probably do this before the majority of the previous step. Aren't I succinct? This next part is optional, but you can input a cube map in the 5th slot if you'd like, but you'd better look up a list of Skyrim cube maps first. But they can make your weapon look good. Once you're done all that, hit the Spells tab up at the top and run these sanitize spells. Reorder link arrays, collapse link arrays, and reorder blocks. I don't know if these things are necessarily mandatory, but it seems like everyone that knows what they're doing really encourages you to do this. So do it because I'm scared. The next step is to save the custom NIF. When that's done, change the name of the NIF file to whatever you want. If you haven't done it already, having the name as something that already exists can cause issues. So if you have if you name it Iron Sword, that could probably cause issues, because there's already an Iron Sword in Skyrim. Next step, open Skyrim Creation Kit and click, or SCK, and click File, Data, and double-click Skyrim.esm. If you're updating a mod, look for your mod's name in the list. Double-click it and hit the Set as Active File button at the bottom left. By this point, you can find pretty good tutorials on how to navigate Skyrim Creation Kit and get what you want. So I will keep it brief, aka I'll be lazy. Although it looks like I've written down a shit ton of things, so maybe I wasn't. In the Object window, make a duplicate of an object of the same weapon type as your custom one. Do that again, but with first-person versions of the object. Edit them and change the ID to whatever you want immediately so it doesn't screw with the other files. Change the parameters to your liking. Find the NIF slot and change it to your NIF. Click OK and go to the Cell View window and find the place where you want to put the weapon. By default, it only shows you interiors. If you want it in the open world or something, click Interiors. Next to World Space and click Tamriel for the open world. Double-click on the place you want and navigate to a good spot for the weapon in the render window, which shows the loaded cell, or rather, place/room/world, with all its models and interactable thingamabobs. From the object window, drag the custom weapon to the render window, and it should appear in the loaded cell. Next, adjust its position and rotation to your liking.
Once that's done, go back to the cell view and find your custom object under input cell here, cell. Or input name here, cell. There's a search bar to make things easier. Right-click it and hit edit. Unchecking the respawns box makes it so this custom weapon does not respawn like certain things in the game after a certain amount of time. Checking the don't have it settle box makes it so when initially spawned in, it doesn't have physics, meaning it won't be affected by gravity or won't care about being jammed in a wall. If you want, you can leave those boxes checked/unchecked. Once that's all done, hit save and it should ask you to name the mod, if it's something new. So name it and check your weapon in Skyrim to see if it's working as intended. Which it should, because mine works fine for me after doing all this. But admittedly, there were some things I skimmed out on for my project, like the edge blood parts of the model responsible for blood splatters on the blade whenever you hit someone, or the other texture maps you could put in those other slots in NifSkope to make your weapon look more fancy. Don't ask about custom collisions. I've no clue, but you could probably use some things learned here to help. Also, don't ask, period. I'm not normally that kind of guy. Also, one more thing. The load order of mods whenever you boot up Skyrim has a chance of causing problems. So use loot or something to fix that if that's the case. Loot is some sort of application which organizes the mods to optimize the load order, and it does stuff. So that was a summary on how you can do this shit. I am tired. I am not very passionate about tutorials, clearly. But I hope I was able to get messages across so you don't have to struggle like I did. I did this in 2024. It worked fine. It's really cool, the idea of putting weapons, be it your own or from other games, into Skyrim. This is mainly a tutorial for NifSkope, if I'm being honest, because that's what I wrote down for the most part. But yeah, you should definitely, if you're missing something, if something doesn't work, please search up tutorials on each and every individual application I mentioned. Though all the applications I did mention were all the applications that I needed to use for making my own weapon, which does not have blood splatters and has environment map and normal map. But yeah, hopefully this works for you. It worked for me. Again, I'm not teaching you how to use GIMP or Photoshop or any sort of image editing thing. I'm not teaching you how to use Blender. And I majorly skimmed over how the fuck you're supposed to use Skyrim Creation Kit. And when it comes to NifSkope, it's really, from what I've found, most of it is look at a normal Nif, or look at a Nif that's in Skyrim, and copy what you see, and just put in your custom Nif. And then when it comes to textures, and how the light is going to bounce off your weapon, / how the grain and dimples and whatnot are going to look on your weapon, that's the part where you really gotta put stuff, you gotta figure out what the fuck you're supposed to do. Jesus. But yeah, this tutorial was mainly about NifSkope, and it's very much just take a vanilla Nif, copy everything you see into your custom Nif, and then you put in your own texture, or you put in the textures and the maps to make it so the light bounces off your weapon correctly. And that is what NifSkope's purpose is in existence. Thank you, Todd, for making such a amazing thing. Thank you for causing people to become obsessed with Tamriel. I hope Elder Scrolls 6 is as addicting as Skyrim, so we can all lose 17,000 hours playing as lizard people. We have Blender, we have GIMP. Oh yeah, and also the Bethesda Archive extractor is essentially how you're going to get a vanilla Nif Did I really even go into how that works? No, I just said use it. I think it's something about just opening it and then like it will either say, all right, where's your Skyrim folder, or it will automatically, I think it's probably something that asks you to find your Skyrim folder and put it in so it can extract the NIF files out of it. I think I'm bad at tutorials, but you know what? When it comes to Skyrim, I can't even say it. It just works. Have a good day. I genuinely hope you were able to get onto the right track with this pseudo tutorial, because this entire process is painful. And if you want to make armor, I'm sure there are some translatable traits when it comes to making a weapon that you can use for making armor. Or anything else, maybe. I'm sure there's something. This was mainly about how to get the game to freaking properly register it. So, yeah. Well, yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped. I will not ask you to like or subscribe because I know I did a shitty job. Have a good day.